Chris Tanev is back on the ice. But one question still hangs in the air. How much longer can he endure? The veteran Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman has been absolutely vital this postseason. And even at 35 years old, in his 15th NHL season, he's playing like he's in the prime of his career. But the toll is coming, and it's not showing on the scoreboard. It's being paid by his body, in his rhythm, and most of all, in his durability. In just 9 playoff games in 2025, Tanev has already absorbed an astonishing 71 hits. That number alone is a red flag. But when you realize that the second most hit player in the same postseason, Rasmus Sandin, a former Leaf himself, has only 43 hits taken, reality hits hard. This isn't just resilience. It's sacrifice. And it puts Tanev in a position that is both heroic and fragile. It's no surprise that the stat echoes through the locker room and the silent hallways of Leafs Nation. Because Toronto's postseason campaign, one of the most promising in the past decade, is being held up by a few very clear pillars. And one of them, without a doubt, is Chris Tanev. But to understand the weight of this moment, we need to go back a bit. When the Toronto Maple Leafs pursued Tanev, there was a clear purpose. It wasn't just a gamble on a veteran. It was a conscious attempt to fix a chronic issue. For years, the team's defense had been under fire and exposed in the most critical moments. Morgan really, despite his talent, always seemed overwhelmed. And in the playoffs, when space disappears and every mistake is costly, that weakness became unsustainable. Despite
Tanev
still playing
arrived
a high
with
promise of stability, represents a and in his first season in blue and white, he delivered everything that was expected and more. He played 75 games in the regular season, scoring 3 goals, totaling 18 points, and posting an impressive plus 31 rating. His number of blocked shots is staggering, 189. And with an average of 1945 time on ice per game, he didn't just take on a quiet leadership role. He redefined the team's defensive dynamic, really started playing with more freedom. The penalty kill, once shaky, grew stronger. And finally, the Leafs had an anchor. If you're a Leafs fan or just a hockey lover who isn't satisfied with the surface level media talk, this is your channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. Because here, we dive into the real story. Tense, unpredictable, and deeply human. Now, in the playoffs, Tanev's presence has become even more crucial. In 9 games, he has 3 points, 25 blocks, over 20 minutes per game, and a solid plus 6 rating. Against physical teams like the Florida Panthers, every shift is a war. The Panthers don't take it easy. They push hard on the forecheck, maintain constant physical pressure, and punish anyone who tries to break out unprepared. And Tanev is right there, shift after shift, absorbing hits that would sideline most players. But for how much longer? In the last game, one moment triggered a wave of concern. Tanev headed down the tunnel. Cameras caught his absence. The locker room held its breath. Was it over? An injury? Fortunately, minutes later, he returned. Reports later confirmed it was just a minor equipment issue. Nothing serious. But that moment was enough to expose a real fear. Tanev is pushing his limits, and the entire team knows it. The most impressive part? He doesn't seem to flinch. Even while leading the NHL in hits taken, he continues blocking shots, battling, and jumping back onto the ice without hesitation. He's the kind of player you want by your side in the playoffs. And at the same time, the kind of player whose absence completely changes the game. That's the most critical point, because Tanev isn't just another solid defenseman. He is, right now, the backbone of Toronto's defensive system. Without him, Reilly's coverage falls apart. The rotation suffers. The penalty kill becomes vulnerable again. With him, there's structure. Without him, the foundation trembles. And that paradox puts the franchise in an unspoken dilemma. The team needs Tanev at full strength, but they're relying on him even when he's banged up. Reduce his workload? That could break the system. Let him keep playing full throttle? That could be costly, very costly if his body gives out. Tanev has become the symbol of a new mindset in the locker room. Total commitment, even when the body screams. He doesn't show up in highlight reels. He's not in the running for individual awards, but he's the kind of player who defines what a team is, or fails to be. And now, with the series against the Panthers taking on dramatic proportions, every Tanev shift becomes an act of resistance. Every hit he absorbs is a brutal reminder. The playoffs forgive no one, but they do build legends. Now I want to hear from you. Should Toronto keep relying on Tanev at this pace? Or should they protect him, even if it risks part of the team's defensive structure? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with fellow fans, and of course, subscribe to the channel. With every game, Tanev writes a new line in the Leaf story. The question is, how many lines are left? The game was over, but the impact lingered in the air. Amid the cold silence of the rink and euphoria of Florida Panthers fans celebrating the 2-0 victory, one shove changed the tone of the series. Max Domi, forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs, shoved Aleksander Barkov from behind in the final seconds of the game, sending the Panthers captain hard into the boards. A sharp hit, a visual provocation, an act that, to many, sounded like desperation. To others, the spark of a team that still refuses to go down without a fight. The NHL's response came quickly. The next morning, the Department of Player Safety announced a penalty. Domi was fined $5,000, the maximum amount allowed under the league's collective bargaining agreement. A symbolic number, but one that carried a warning. The NHL is watching, and the ice is hotter than ever. This is where the series shifts direction. Leafs and Panthers had reached this point with 2 wins each. Game 4 was Florida's chance to take the lead, and they seized it. But what really defined the night was the intensity, frustration, and rising aggression that took over in the final minutes. Domi's shove didn't come out of nowhere. It came from a series teetering on the edge of emotional collapse. In the moments that followed the hit, players from both sides clashed in a chaotic scrum. Bobby McMahon for Toronto, Panthers defenseman Aaron Ekblad, and Brad Marchand, celebrating his 37th birthday, were all handed 10-minute misconducts for the mass brawl. Emotions were boiling over. The scoreboard might have settled, but the tension was still erupting. If you live and breathe hockey the way these players do with every shift, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't just show the score. We reveal the soul of the game. Despite still playing at high level, coach Paul Maurice calmed reporters during the post-game press conference. He said Barkov, fortunately, was not injured, but the image of the captain being shoved violently into the boards won't be forgotten anytime soon. Not by the Florida bench and not by the fans. The rivalry that already existed between these teams now has new fuel. It's no longer just playoff hockey. It's personal. Sam Bennett, Panther center, tried to downplay the moment. It's been a physical series. I expect more of it, he said. And he's not wrong. Leafs and Panthers have been playing heavy hockey since the first puck drop of the second-round series. But how far can physical play go before it becomes dangerous? At what point does intensity cross the line of competitive ethics? Toronto Maple Leafs coach Craig Berube was also asked about Domi's hit, but instead of directly defending his player, he redirected the conversation, like a political strategist steering the camera away from one scandal to another. Dmitry Kulikov's hit on Mitch Marner was 10 times worse, he said, referencing a first-period play where the Florida defenseman appeared to elbow Marner in the head. Kulikov received no penalty, and Berube didn't forget. That answer isn't just a way to shield Domi. It's a veiled protest against what Toronto sees as selective officiating. And in the playoffs, every word counts. Because on the ice, politics matter just as much as goals. The series, now tied at 2-2, returns to Toronto for Game 5, scheduled for Wednesday at 7 p.m., airing on Sportsnet and Sportsnet Plus. But what's being prepared goes far beyond a regular hockey game. It's a rematch loaded with anger, fresh memories, and a thirst for retaliation. Max Domi, with his family legacy, son of Ty Domi, one of the toughest players of the 1990s, seems to carry in his DNA a readiness for this kind of war. And the shove against Barkov, though punished, might have sparked something within the Leafs, a rallying point, a them versus us mentality. The kind of fire teams find when they need more than just skill to survive. But the risk is real. The NHL is watching closely. And if this series escalates further, harsher penalties could follow, suspensions, investigations. The balance between playing hard and playing dirty has never felt more fragile. The big question now is, will Game 5 be a technical response or an emotional one? Will Toronto seek redemption with the puck or with its fists? That's what makes the NHL playoffs unlike anything else in sports. Here, the storyline changes with every game, every hit, every shove. And Max Domi's hit may have written a darker new chapter in this growing rivalry. Now it's your turn. Did Domi cross the line, or is that the kind of intensity that defines playoff hockey? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the full breakdown of Game 5, which will determine not just who advances, but who survives this war of nerves. Get ready. The series is tied. But emotional balance? That's already been broken.